Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. Been working on these books this week. I regret to say that I've not made great progress on them, but yeah, what do you expect, huh? It's the holidays. I've been very busy with a number of different things, which I won't get into in this video, but we've all been busy this time of year, haven't we? So, by the way, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, all that stuff. I'll do my best to keep this video short, I guess. I may as well start. I think I'm integrating my book hauls or mail hauls into these weekly reading vlogs. These are BookTube traditions. And just got this one in the mail today. I had ordered it a month ago. The Jerusalem Bible, which I will talk more about in a separate video, talking about why I wanted to start reading this and my history of reading the Bible. But that's going to be a long rambling video in which I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff, and we'll do that in a separate video. So the grammar book I've made very little progress on. I managed to read 4 pages this week, which was just wrapping up the part on WH questions and going into some teaching suggestions, a couple of which I thought were moderately useful. Usually the teaching suggestions are not the strong point with this book. And I have to do the exercises next. Try and make a little bit of time for that this week. That's going to involve the sentence trees. The other book I made very little progress on is Herodotus. I regret that I haven't been spending more time on this book. I think initially, during the earlier parts of this year, I was able to juggle 4 books. But now that I'm getting busier, I'm less able to juggle this. And I'm just doing a couple pages a week. And it's all right, but I think I would get the experience more if I would immerse myself more in it. It would also maybe help me to remember all these names if I was more immersed in it. There have been a lot of digressions in this book, but I am here. I only read 4 pages this week, but the 4 pages I read were some of the more famous parts of the narrative. This is my first time reading Herodotus, but I'm familiar with this story from both Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, King of Kings, which I've talked about on this YouTube channel, and Donald Kagan's Yale Lecture Series on the Ancient Greeks, which I've reviewed on my blog but not yet talked about on this YouTube channel. But this is the part where the Ionians are trying to get the Athenians to join them in their revolt. So they've already gone down to Sparta. The Spartan king says no. And then they go into Athens. And Athens actually already is running into an antagonistic relationship with Sparta, because Sparta wants them to restore the tyrant that they got rid of, Hippias, who has gone over to Sparta. But then on top of that, the Ionian delegate, a guy called Aristagoras, makes them all these promises, the same promises he made to the Spartan king, of what they'll get if they help the Ionian revolt. And it says, yeah. In fact, his need was so pressing that there is nothing he did not promise, he meaning Aristagoras, the Athenians, whom he duly convinced. This seems to suggest, since the same tricks which had failed Aristagoras one-on-one with Cleomenes being the Spartan king, had won round 30,000 Athenians, that a crowd is more easily fooled than a single man. I guess the famous part is that last one, that a crowd is more easily fooled than a single man. This is something I remember both Donald Kagan and Dan Carlin both commented on as seems to be Herodotus's jibe at democracies. So a crowd is easily fooled, whereas one single man is not as easily fooled. Better to be ruled by a king than a crowd. And in fact, the footnotes from translator Tom Holland, he footnotes this. What does it say? Herodotus seems to link Athens' purportedly senseless decision to support the revolt to the fact that it was a democracy. So if it wasn't clear enough from the text, Tom Holland reinforces that in the footnotes. He seems to be blaming this on the fact that Athens is a democracy. Now, this has to be counterbalanced with some of the previous passages in which he seems to, Herodotus seems to be arguing in favor of democracy. In fact, one passage I quoted last week where he was saying, now that Athens has gotten rid of their tyrant, all the people are fighting more valiantly, fighting more, because they realize that now they're fighting for themselves instead of fighting for their tyrant. As well as section much earlier, which is called the Debate of the Grandees, when the Persians are debating which form of government is best. The Persians are debating, but of course the storyteller is Herodotus, and one of them makes a case for a democratic form of government. So, I'm not sure how you balance those out. Meaning, I'm not sure what Herodotus's ultimate views were. I'm sure there's something written about this somewhere, where scholars have tried to have teased out or tried to tease out what his ultimate views on democracy were. But that's just a little interesting section. So one of the more famous sections of Herodotus this week, even though I only read a couple pages, those couple pages did cause me some confusion. And this is one of the reasons why I don't devote as much time to Herodotus as I should, is because it requires a little bit more careful attention than some of these other books do. So I can't really just pick it up and read it in snippets. So, for example, just from these 4 pages I read this week, it talks about how the Athenian tyrant Hippias was sent packing. It says he was offered a couple places, but he settled on returning to Sigeum, which Pisistratus, I think Pisistratus was his ancestor, had wrestled by force from the Mytileneans. And so he goes to Sigeum, and there's some sort of conflict in Sigeum between the Athenians in Sigeum and the Mytileans, who used to control it. And I'm trying to figure out where this is in the map, or what the history of this place is. And there is a map index in the back, from which I gathered that it was somewhere on map 8. This map here, but I after staring at the map for some time, I couldn't find where these places were. It's on here somewhere, but again, this is, I don't know if this would be, oh no, here it is. There it is right there. Okay, I couldn't find it earlier, but there's Sigeum there. And where is that in relation to... okay, so this is, I guess this is Mytilene, which was claiming sovereignty over it. So I don't know if some of these things would be easier to follow in the landmark. I'm told that the landmark has better maps. I'm still thinking I might reread Herodotus one day. if I have devote more attention to it and use the landmark edition. Okay, moving on though. So I had finished up last week. The book got a little bit bent here. Problems with living with a toddler. Finished up the Fellowship of the Rings. Filmed and posted my review of this on Monday. Sorry, Fellowship of the Ring. I keep putting that in the plural. I think because it's Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring. Anyways, reviewed this on Monday. And it was a long and rambling review, as my reviews tend to be. I may have veered too much on the side of complaining about stuff, which I maybe have a tendency to do. Because it's not that these books are not without their pleasures. They can be quite interesting. And I've gone on next to The Two Towers. Now, this is all from the box set. And what they do in the box set, I don't know if this is standard across editions, but they've kept the page numbers going. So, this one stops off at 531 pages, and then this one just starts up, I guess, at 531, although the first page of text, I think, is 537. But the page numbers just across these three books keep going. I guess the publishers are trying to convey that it's really just supposed to be one long book, because the Hobbit, which is also part of the box set, those page numbers don't continue. It's just the three books in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So anyways, with those page numbers, started on 537, got to 652. This, because it's the smallest of the books I'm currently reading and most portable, I've been able to carry around with me this week as I've had to run various errands and get it read in small snippets, and consequently, it's the book I've read the most this week. I've read 115 pages, all in small snippets, where while waiting for the real estate agent to show up, or while waiting at the hospital, or just all the different errands I've had to do this week. It's all narrative that is going to be familiar to everyone from the movies, even if you haven't read the book. Boromir gets killed right at the very beginning of this book. That's something they switched around in the movies a little bit. In the movies they added that, as of course everyone knows, they added that to the end of the first movie. In the books, it's right at the beginning of the second book. I think the movies definitely made the right decision by making that the dramatic endpoint of the first movie. Sorry. There is actually a lot of very interesting stuff going on in these 115 pages I read, and I'm trying to think about what to talk about. Maybe the smartest move actually would not to be to talk about any of it in great detail. Just talk briefly about it. So as of course I'm sure everyone remembers from the movie, Pippin and Merry get captured by the orcs. There's some interesting dialogue back and forth between the orcs. The orcs are in two groups: the ones that serve Sauron and the ones that serve Saruman. Oh, by the way, why in the world did Tolkien give those two guys such similar names? So the main antagonists, as again everyone knows from the movie, in this series are Saruman and Sauron. And it just sounds so similar, and even in print it looks so similar that quite often I'll get them mixed up. And part of this is maybe me not reading carefully enough. But, I think they're talking about Sauron, and then I'll go back and I'll be like, oh, right, that was Saruman they were talking about in the previous section. I mean, why Tolkien just didn't give them completely different sounding names, I don't know. My best guess maybe is he's trying to imitate the old legends and sagas in which, for whatever reason, everybody has similar names in those. Yeah, and this is something else that when they meet the riders of Rohan, they have a bunch of similar names. It seems to be a lot of names that start with E-O or something like that. Um, and again, I don't know. Think he's maybe trying to imitate the old sagas in this, but it might be nicer if everyone had more distinct names that didn't lend themselves to getting mixed up. But anyways, you get a vision into the world of the orcs, and they're arguing. And meanwhile, Gimli and Aragorn and Legolas are following them. And they eventually meet up with the riders of Rohan. And you get an interesting little glimpse into the world of these horse people who live on the plain of Rohan and their culture. And then Merry and Pippin escape into the forests and meet the Ints, which are these, I guess they're like trees or they are trees. I'm not entirely sure about that, but some sort of big tree-like creature. Again, I'm assuming everybody remembers this from the movie, but in the book, of course, you get into a lot more detail about the lore and the legends of the Ints, and the Ints searching for the Int wives, which apparently is this old legend in Middle Earth because they can't find the Int wives. It sounds to me like Tolkien is trying to again emulate or what's the word I'm wanting to look to, pay homage to those old legends about the gods of nature and the gods of agriculture and fertility. And the Int wives seem to have been the ones that have taught humans how to cultivate their land or help humans to cultivate their lands, where the Ints are more concerned with the natural forests. And at one point there was a separation between them, and now the Ints can't find the Int wives. And I'm not doing justice to any of this, I realize, but it's interesting when you read it and you get immersed into these worlds that Tolkien has created. So I hope I didn't complain too much in my previous review when I was reviewing this one. There is a lot in these books that try your patience, definitely, but there's also a lot that can be interesting in them. Okay, then moving on, the complete Stories of Oz, doing this with Dane Cobain over at Dane Reads as a buddy read. Filmed my review of The Emerald City of Oz, which L. Frank Baum thought was going to be his last book in the series, but then he comes back again with book number 7, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. So I think The Patchwork Girl of Oz is the longest one so far. Again, it's a bit hard to get a quick page count on this because the page numbers are all cumulative, but seems to be over 100 pages in this edition. Well, many of the previous ones had been under 100 pages. And I've gotten 52 of those pages knocked out this week. So in order to keep on schedule, I'll have to do a bit more reading next week. Keep on schedule, meaning Dane and I are reviewing this every 2 weeks on the Monday. So this book starts off in the land of the Munchkins with completely new characters. And this is the first time we've started off with completely new characters since book number 2. Book 3, 4, 5, and 6 have all started off with Dorothy again and Dorothy's adventures. But here we get completely new characters, Ojo and Unk Nunky, who are living in the forest in the middle of Munchkin country. Although as they emerge and go on their journeys, they do meet again up with the Shaggy Man, who has been in the Oz stories in the last couple books. Oh, and I believe there's a crossover with one of L. Frank Baum's other series with Mo the Donkey, or the Donkey from the Land of Mo, or something like that. I'd have to double check this again with Wikipedia. So, gonna continue on with this and then hopefully finish that up for this week. And I think I will stop the video here and maybe come back with a second video talking about my plans to start reading the Bible. So yeah, I will see you guys next week.